Here's something psychology keeps finding that almost nobody talks about. People with extremely high IQs don't look the way we expect them to. We picture someone confident in every room, always with the right answer, never lost or confused. But the reality is almost the opposite. Many of the most cognitively advanced people carry quiet patterns that look like flaws on the surface, habits that seem strange, behaviors that others constantly misread. And here's what makes this genuinely useful to understand. These patterns aren't just signs of intelligence, they're practices you can study, understand, and slowly build into your own thinking. Here are 8 psychological traits commonly found in people with extremely high IQs, what they mean, and how understanding them can actually change the way you think. The first trait is one that almost nobody expects. People with very high IQs are unusually comfortable sitting with uncertainty. When most people face a problem they can't immediately solve, the brain creates pressure. Find an answer, any answer, just make the discomfort stop. Highly intelligent people resist that pressure. They let the question stay open. They return to it slowly, without urgency. Psychologists call this tolerance for ambiguity, and it's directly connected to deeper thinking. Most of the shallow decisions we end up regretting come from that same pressure to just decide quickly. Training yourself to pause slightly longer before closing a question can genuinely shift the quality of your thinking over time.
The second trait sounds strange at first. Many people with high cognitive ability talk to themselves deliberately. Psychologists call this self-directed speech. When you narrate your thinking out loud, your brain organizes information more clearly and catches errors you would otherwise miss entirely. Think about the last time you explained a problem to someone and suddenly understood it better yourself. Self-directed speech does exactly that. When you are stuck on something, try narrating it out loud. Describe the problem like you're explaining it to a wall. It sounds odd, but the research behind it is solid. The third trait gets misread constantly. Highly intelligent people spend a lot of time alone, and this is almost always interpreted as shyness or social difficulty. But psychology tells a different story. The prefrontal cortex, which is the part of the brain responsible for complex thinking and reflection, does its best work in quiet. A study from the London School of Economics found that people with higher cognitive ability actually reported lower satisfaction from frequent socializing. Not because they disliked people, but because their brains were most engaged in their own processing space. If you find yourself needing more alone time than the people around you, that is not a flaw. Protecting that quiet time, rather than feeling guilty about it, can significantly improve the quality of your thinking. The fourth trait is one that often causes real frustration. People with high cognitive ability tend to overthink. Not just big decisions, minor conversations, minor interactions, plans that may never matter. From the outside, this looks like anxiety or indecision, but what's actually happening is different. The same analytical system that processes complex problems keeps running on smaller inputs too. It's not a malfunction, it's the same engine doing what it always does. The practical insight here is learning to recognize when your brain is overprocessing something small and consciously choosing to close the loop. Not everything deserves deep analysis. Building that judgment is something highly intelligent people often have to develop deliberately over time. The sixth trait gets misread as weakness almost every time. Highly intelligent people change their minds when new information arrives. In a culture that treats consistency as a virtue, this looks unreliable. But psychologists describe it differently. It connects to something called cognitive flexibility, the ability to update your mental models when evidence changes, rather than defending them simply because you have already committed to them. Holding a position regardless of new information just to appear consistent is actually a sign of rigid thinking. Ask yourself occasionally, do I believe this because of real current evidence or simply because I have believed it for a long time and changing it now feels uncomfortable? The seventh trait is one that shows up quietly in social situations. Highly intelligent people tend to observe significantly more than they speak, especially in unfamiliar environments. Before responding, they watch. They notice emotional undercurrents in the room. They pick up on what people are not saying as much as what they are. Most of us have been trained to fill silences and always have something ready to say, but some of the most useful information in any room is only available to the person who is genuinely watching rather than preparing their next contribution. The eighth trait connects all the others.
People with very high cognitive ability carry a quiet, persistent search for meaning. Not dramatic or philosophical, just a low-level, ongoing question running in the background. Why do things work this way? What actually matters here beneath the explanation? If you recognize this pattern in yourself, that quiet search that never fully switches off, it is worth taking seriously rather than dismissing it as overthinking or restlessness. The people who build the most clarity about their own lives tend to be the ones who followed those questions rather than silenced them. Here is what ties this all together. None of these traits are fixed gifts that some people are born with and others simply are not. They are patterns of thinking, habits of processing, ways of engaging with uncertainty, information, and other people. All of them can be studied and practiced in degrees. The person who sits with uncertainty just a little longer, the person who asks one more question before accepting an explanation, the person who protects their quiet thinking time instead of feeling guilty about it, they are all building something real. Intelligence at its core is not about what you know. It's about how honestly and curiously you engage with everything you do not yet know. And that is something worth building deliberately.